Well, I initially got involved by just translating the tweets that she was tweeting in Arabic, translating them into English, and the videos that she was posting, translating them into English as well. And we all just continued to rally behind her, continue tweeting and retweeting, hoping that somebody with power, some politicians or journalists or human rights people would get involved. And luckily, that's exactly what happened. We were all very relieved because a couple years prior, we had a very similar situation with a young woman named Dina Ali, who was stuck in the Philippines, and she was also tweeting for help. But unfortunately, we weren't able to help her quickly enough, and she ended up being duct taped and put on a plane back to Saudi Arabia, and we haven't heard from her since, and that was 2 years ago. So we're very lucky that Rahaf's situation turned out very differently.
Well, Yasmine, in many ways, you could relate to Rahaf's story, which she describes as escaping from abuse at home.
Yes, absolutely. I grew up in Canada, but my upbringing was very similar in that I also wore niqab, which is the black face covering, and the black gloves and the black socks. All of those were delivered for me from Saudi Arabia. And I was forced into a marriage at a young age, and I had a daughter right away. And then I was contacted by my Canadian intelligence agency called CSIS to let me know that the man that I was married to was a member of Al-Qaeda and that he had been working with bin Laden for 10 years before coming to Canada. So, of course, I wanted to get myself and my daughter away from him, and luckily I was able to do that because I'm in Canada. So I was estranged from my family. That they disowned me, they threatened to kill me, but I was still able to continue on with my life and make a life for myself and for my daughter, get student loans, go to university. The kinds of freedoms that are afforded to me because I'm living in a secular country are not the kinds of freedoms that would have been afforded to Rahaf or any other man or woman that decides that they want to leave Islam, especially if they're in a Muslim-majority country that follows Sharia, which is Islamic law, like Saudi Arabia, because according to Sharia, if you leave Islam, the punishment for that is execution.
Do you think Rahaf will ever feel completely safe in Canada?
I hope she does. It's going to take a while for her to get used to the completely different society that she's in. So Saudi Arabia is an absolute monarchy. So it's essentially like a dictatorship. Everybody is afraid of everybody. Everybody thinks that everybody is a spy. Everybody's too scared to they think that they're going to get drugged or murdered. People just disappear. It's not the kind of country where she didn't grow up thinking that she could trust police officers. She certainly didn't feel like she could trust the government. So being in Canada is completely different for her because when she receives death threats when she's in Saudi Arabia, she takes them very seriously. And when she gets those same threats in Canada, although it's important that she still take them seriously because, of course, honor killings still happen in Canada and they happen in the U.S. and they happen in Australia and they happen in the U.K. and they happen all over the world. But it's to a much lesser degree than it would happen in a Muslim-majority country.
Well, Rahaf says she hopes her experience will inspire other Saudi women to escape similar abusive situations. But tell us, what is the reality like? It can't be easy for many women.
No, it's absolutely not easy at all. And the women in Saudi Arabia, the ones that want to fight back, their choices are either to fight back at home or to try and escape and fight back from a safe Western country. Now, if they fight back at home, they could end up in prison. There are quite a few feminists in prison right now. One of them is Lujain Al-Hathlul, who actually went to the same university as I did here in Canada. And she is being tortured in prison for the crime of wanting women to be able to drive. That was one of her campaigns. And of course, now women are technically allowed to drive there. But the women that were fighting for that are still in prison.
Rahaf also says that she hopes that the laws which restrict women's lives in many ways will change now that the international spotlight is on Saudi Arabia. When do you believe that you'll see change?
I think it's very possible for these guardianship laws to end very soon. Women have been fighting for this for so long, women and men in Saudi Arabia to a much lesser degree. But there have been some men that have been speaking up and fighting against these laws as well. It's essentially a gender apartheid. And I firmly believe that the rest of the world should be treating Saudi Arabia the same way we treated South Africa when they had their racial apartheid going on over there. Saudi Arabia is treating 50% of their population as subhuman. They could be grown women, they could be mothers, they could be grandmothers, and they're still treated as dependents. They're still not allowed to open a bank account on their own or go to the doctor on their own. Or, we make a big deal about women being allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. Yes, technically they are, but they still need a man's permission to leave the home. They still need a man's permission to purchase a car. They still need a man's permission in order to get a driver's license. The restrictions are still immense. And it's almost impossible for a woman to live a happy and fulfilling life under those circumstances.
It seems that Canada really didn't take very long to decide to grant asylum to Rahaf.
Well, if I'm going to be honest with you, our government here, I wouldn't be surprised if they did actually just swoop in, because it's kind of that's another reason why Rahaf was lucky, is because politically it was just a good time for our government to do this. Because, campaign time is coming up, and there is that sort of animosity between Canada and Saudi Arabia right now already, because our Minister of Foreign Affairs spoke out against the way Saudi Arabia was treating its women's rights activists. And Saudi Arabia reacted by canceling all the flights to Canada and making all of the the international students from Canada return back to Saudi Arabia, and they wouldn't let the Canadian ambassador back into Saudi Arabia again. But that's it, really. Our relationship with Saudi Arabia is, it's very minimal. So it's actually worth it to our government to make these big gestures to say, this is how much we support human rights and this is how much we're against Saudi Arabia, because that's the kind of thing that Canadians would really support.
Yasmine, thanks so much for talking to us tonight, and all the best.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.